How do I do it? And what do I need to know? And what's this thing called energy? And how do wait, success already exists for me right now. How do I do that? It wobbles the chair pieces because the foundation of what you have known all your life is now rocked. And so it's like, we're going to start with this new foundation. We're going to start with this new premise that everything is energy, that all energy is available to you, and that all energy carries a vibration. The vibration is what you choose as the human being, focusing on that certain vibration, need, desire, whatever it may be, or the lack of it, or the fear of not having it, or the worry you'll never get it. That's a vibration too. And we manifest from that place. So we are really important in what we manifest in our lives.
Welcome back to another episode of Rewiring Health. So honored to have Christy Whitman on the podcast today. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Kelly. I love your story that you told me ahead of time where you didn't know about me, and I was on Michael Beck with this podcast, and then was like 2 days later, someone from my team reached out to be on your podcast. So it's nice to meet you.
Yes, it was such a cool moment because I literally was listening to it on my way to the gym, and I'm like, oh wow, I really loved what you were speaking on. It resonated with me. And then literally 2 days later, I get an email in my inbox to have you on. So very cool.
So perfect. Yeah. And that's flow. That's flow, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like a lot of times people think flow is that feeling of, like Michael Jordan dunking his basket into the net, or I guess for your generation, it would be who? James.
I think Jordan is mine.
Is he? Okay, perfect. So, well, now I love you even more. No,
I know, right?
James, what is his name? Why am I?
LeBron.
LeBron. Thank you. There's a big debate in my family because I've got teenage boys that have see LeBron play or had seen, and think he's the greatest. And so it's a constant debate in our house. But the point is that person that is in that zone, whether you call it an artist that just downloads a song in a minute, that can write a book and just channel a book like I do, right? Or someone that does some kind of art or sculpting where they're so in the process of what they're doing that time flies, and it just, you feel so guided and all that. Well, we can have that in just even moments and synchronicities of, oh, I like her. And then boom, you like me? We get to have a conversation together now. Like how cool is that?
Yes.
That's flow. So
yeah, I love that. And as you're explaining that, it's like, I think so many of us have experienced like glimpses of flow in our life, but
yeah.
it's that like, how do we access flow more often? And that's what I would really love to dive into, because it feels like there's so much resistance around us and so many things that inhibit that flow. And it's like you get that glimpse and you're like, how do I get that back? That moment of things just felt like natural. And I would love for you to just share a little bit more about that. Like, how do we invite more flow into our life and maybe not have so much resistance to things that we desire?
Well, there's a lot of levels here. The first thing is to realize and know that flow exists. And what is flow? Like, how do we really define it? How I define it, and what I've come to teach over 25 years of being a coach and a healer and a channeler and, all author, whatever, but it's like that energy of flow of what we want to attain, that what we're searching for, what we're hungry for, what we're thirsting, what we feel like, oh, if I just had that, that's flow. And so flow is not something that is just something you get every once in a while or glimpses of it. It's something you can actually harness and be able to use in your daily life for your career, for your body, for, driving in your car from point A to point B, like having all, green lights. I mean, having the weather cooperate. I mean, I'm talking about really being able to know that you are in partnership with this thing called flow, with this pure potential energy, with this, so just infinitely supportive energy constantly. We cannot run out of it. This part of ourselves, this part of the universe, doesn't know limitations like we do as a human, right? That's the human game, is limitations, lack, emotions that don't feel good. Any emotion that doesn't feel good is kind of in the first spectrum of emotions. and that's lack, and it doesn't feel good. And how do you get there is by focusing on what you don't have, what you haven't done yet, what you'll never have, the places where you feel very much in a victim consciousness. You feel like you need to be the glue, the rescuer, in your families or businesses or your life. And like everything's on your shoulders and there's a lot of pressure. And when you really think about it, a lot of it's self-pressure that we put on ourselves, the blame and the, criticism and the judgment and all of that stuff. All of that is a very human experience, but it's not the only human experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's a vibrational, because on the other end, let's just turn and face this way, like on the other end of the spectrum with this other, there's three different states of being. That one doesn't feel good, but we know it as humans. When there's something contrasting what we don't want, then we kick into our primitive fight, flight, freeze. We go into our fears, doubts, worries, right? And then when we stay there, that's where we create more of things that we don't want. It's where we feel the resistance and the restriction, and we feel like stuck, and we feel like I have no choices or options here, and everything's like a should and a have to, and right, that let's go to the other side, right? It's like the other side is abundance, where you get to choose your energetic, first of all, because everything's first energy before it forms into anything. You get to first choose your energetic set point, your what fulfills you, what feels good to focus on, what you get to choose that. And when we are focused on what we want and why we want something and how we ultimately want to feel when we have it, achieve it, do it, whatever that is, that's the energy that is the flow. That energy is available now. So if it's success you're after, I got to prove myself so that I want to feel successful, and that everybody else is happy, that what is that feeling like? I want to be secure, I want to be safe, I want to be free, I want to be loved, I want to be appreciated. We have needs, natural, energetic feeling sense of needs. And when you can know that that too is in flow, or is flow available to us, then it's like you could just tap into that energy. You could be in a worst case scenario in your life, but still tap into a supportive, loving, compassionate energy. I have been there, done that.
Yeah. It's so empowering, because there's so much of us that can feel like we are just stuck in that survival mode. Sometimes it's so normal to us, quote normal, that it's hard to even visualize something outside ourselves. And we think like, okay, when the external world changes, then my life will finally feel the way I want it to. But it's so backwards in how so many of us think. And I was in that spot for a long time. Like, when I get the job, when I get the degree, then things will finally feel like they're smooth for me. And it was just this treadmill that you can never keep up with, and nothing ever felt fulfilling. So I
It's
love,
exhausting.
oh, completely exhausting.
It's like the chase, like you're right. It's like that image of being on just that constant revolving, it's like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not, what's the purpose of this? I mean, I'm exerting a lot of energy and not getting anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think so many of us get stuck in that trap, especially as high achievers, where you feel like, okay, I just have to do one more thing, and that you just think it's eventually going to pan out, and it doesn't. So it can be very frustrating to be on that cycle, but I love the paradigm shift of understanding that it's within us. And that's really when things start to shift.
Yeah, and
Powerful.
it's to those like go-getter women that that are listening right now. I'm one of you, right? I'm a little bit older maybe than you, but it's like I'm one of you. I driven and inspired and a mission, and there's I could see it and go for it, and I created it. I'm living the life that I literally constructed and designed and created. And I will tell you that I started off in that gotta grind, gotta do, gotta just push myself a little bit more. There's a lot of that motivation of, get yourself up. Come on, 5, 3, 2, 1, get yourself up, go do more, because it's all action. But it's not just about action. And I'm not saying it's not about action. It's finding that balance between what I wrote in my best-selling book, Quantum Success, which is all about applying the seven universal laws towards work and money. So if you're interested in making more money and having more flow and fluid, in your career, that's a great book to pick up, because I go through the 7 essential principles, the laws. But in that, the Cliff Note version for all of you, if you don't go read the book, is that success, having quantum success, quantum meaning energetic, that level of higher success than just human being putting an effort alone, it just 10x, it just elevates you. It's like having a turbo booster, right? It's just, there's an elevation of working from a place of alignment with energy, being clear on, I want to feel successful. It's not that, even doesn't have to be that woo woo. It's like, I just want to feel good. I just want to have what I put my attention and focus on be successful. And what that would feel like is this. And then you start to feel what success feels like. If this goes well, instead of, well, if this fails, if this doesn't go right, what if this isn't wrong? Because that way of thinking, you go back into the lack, where it's like, I don't feel good. Well, no wonder you don't feel good. You're focusing on what you don't want. You're focusing on what you're afraid of happening, that probably most likely ever won't. But it's like, that's where the focus is. And we're the ones that are the focusers, right? I mean, we create our reality from our consciousness. And what is our consciousness? It's the words that we say. It's the thoughts that we think. It's the images, the pictures. It's like that paradigm, that pictured belief, right? Mm-hmm. It's like that perspective, and then it's the actions we take. So the actions are important, and so is the momentum piece of creating your life, your business, money, whatever it is that you want, but doing it from a place of alignment, meaning I already have that energetic support, that energy of success or prosperity or wealth or health or whatever, it's love, support, whatever that energy is that I want to be fulfilled in. I can fill myself with that instantaneously, so that you're coming from a satisfied place, not a place of desperation and need to have it and don't know when I'm going to get it, if ever, right? You're coming from a place of, I have it energetically, the feelings that I want, I already have. Mm-hmm. And now it's just a matter, that's the baseline, that's the energy, right? And that's how you call things into form, is through the energy. So when you're holding this energy of what you ultimately want in your container, you're coming from a place of personal fulfillment in your life. I mean, isn't that what all of us want anyway? It's like, no matter what I'm doing, no matter where I'm directing my focus and attention, that whether it's my kids or my husband or my career or friends or, whatever it is, wherever I'm directing my attention, is that I'm engaged with it. I love it. It feels good to me, and I want more of it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not necessarily the thing we want, it's the feeling of what that thing gives us that is really like calling to us. And I love to dive a little deeper, because I think a trap that many of us, and I know myself included, is that like balance of action and trust. Because it's like when you're used to being like, I have to go, 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 to like stop for a moment and be able to like be in your frame with that, it can be really challenging, and to allow yourself to let the universe do its part. Can you
I
talk
get
about
it.
how we can balance that of like taking the action, but maybe not suffocating it with the action?
Yes, and I'm glad that you're asking this question, because this is something I learned the hard way for many years, right? Because I know how to take action. I know how to make things happen. I know how to delegate, right? It's like I know how to do that. So much so that I was off scale in that. And what a really great teacher taught me years and years ago is that you want to think about your whole entire life, but even like your business, as you need time to glide. So if you think about, if you snowboard or ski or, do, what is it? I have the picture of it. The surf, not surfboard. Well, if you surf, if you, What's that thing that has wheels? Oh my God.
Skateboard.
Skateboard. Thank you.
Skateboard. Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Oh, geez. Even if you do like roller skating,
Yeah.
biking, any of that kind of stuff, right? Any rowing a boat, kayaking, there's a time to work, there's a time to move, there's a time to do, and then there's a time to sit back and let yourself glide and go where you need to go. And it's that type of rhythm, right? Where it's like you're required to like paddle, 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 and now I remember being in Mexico and I was with my husband. We saw a dolphin and we were like, let's go. We paddle, paddle, paddle. We got really close up to it and popped up and then it took off. And so there was that moment of work, 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 and then just watch it go, and just enjoy it. So it's that kind of a rhythm when you're skiing, right? There's times where you're needing to work really hard through the moguls, that kind of thing. And then there's a time where it's just like, I get to
Yeah.
glide. And
Hmm.
so it's working in the natural glide to be, because the glide is the enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
The glide is I just experienced that over our last Thanksgiving in that there wasn't a bunch of things to do. And it was like, oh, I could fill it up with a bunch of stuff. I call this person, do this person. But there was like 3 days of nothing to do, which is rare on our calendars. No
Yeah.
games, no, and I just let myself be in that space of do nothing and then had some amazing creative ideas because it's in the place of understanding emotional intelligence, understanding energetic intelligence, that you have to create space for yourself in order to feel it. Because if you
Yeah.
don't create that space in order to connect with it, you're
Hmm.
not going to be working with it. It's still going to be there for you, but you're not accessing something that is a very powerful tool that you could be using towards creating your life and your success. I was just talking to my husband the other day. We were in drive a Lexus, and he was like, "Hey, look at this," and he was showing me. He goes, "You could see the tire pressure," and I was like, "Wow, my car does that." I go, "I have a feeling that this car does a lot more than I'm using." You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's like I
Yeah.
use it to get on the radio, or what do you call it, Sirius or whatever, and
Hmm.
go to A to B, that kind of thing. But there's a lot more that this machine could do if I wanted it to,
Yeah.
and it's there, right? I'm just not using it.
Yeah.
And so that's like, as for each of us, it's like the energy that supports us and loves us and that is us and that is complete flow. It wants to create with us. We're the ones that have to open up to it and direct the energy towards what we want instead of what we don't want.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I love that imagery of that because it's so relatable of like having that gliding in it and allowing for that. And I can definitely like, I know there's so many times I'm just like, okay, we got to go. There's no glide. And I can see that. And I think so many people get stuck in that of like, maybe especially when you don't see the results in your 3D world yet, you're like, okay, then I just have to push harder until it gets there. And I love to maybe dive into that a little bit more of like when we are thinking that we're doing all the right things. Maybe we're saying the right words. Maybe we're doing the thoughts and and maybe inviting some of that energy, but we're not seeing it in our world yet. Can you talk about that gap between like where we start to shift inwardly and then maybe when we see it outwardly?
Yeah, the gap. Oh, the gap.
Mhm.
The gap can be
Yeah.
so frustrating. Oh my God.
Right.
But it's an absolute essential part of manifesting, right? And it's like who you are now and the version of who you are becoming that has this thing or this way of life or this new energy, because that's what I wrote about in my book, The Desire Factor. It's this steps to literally how energy sets up and then pops into manifestation, and how what we need to do in order to work with that energy to deliberately create what we want. And so it's really understanding that you get to address the energy, call the energy in, and when you're working, when you're doing something and something does go well, when you're in a place of nothing is going well, it hasn't happened, why is it happening for me? Even if good things do happen, even if they're little, a lot of times we miss them. And so, you know, and even if things are going well and we have lots of successes, right? We might completely dismiss them. Like you might have had a bunch of sales come into the company and you're like, oh, you just still need this money, but the money's coming in, you're not celebrating it, right? So we want to, and especially in the places of where the gap is, you want to fill that gap up intentionally with the energy that you want to be at the other side of that gap,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? It's like if you want to feel successful and you don't, and there's that gap, or you're waiting for something to manifest that hasn't yet, it's like if there's a gap, you want to fill it up with worry, doubt, and fear towards that, because at the end of it, you're going to have worry, doubt, fear, disappointment. It's not going to turn out the way you ultimately want it because the energy is not there to support it. But if you're in coming from a place of, I want to feel the success, I'm practicing this, the feeling and the vibration of what me at the version of successful feels like, with ease, with grace. It's not just about I'm successful and I'm exhausted. It's like you get to have the success, enjoy the success, feel it, really dip into it, and stop for those moments, and put your hand on your heart, or give yourself a hug. And it's like those are the moments of grounding in the success. It's like a moment of, oh, wow, I just got a new client, and that client just paid, spent abundance, exchanged this amount, right? And holding that and being like, wow, that's a success, right? I just, I just had an article that came out, or I just had this that happened, or I got a promotion, or my boss gave me a thumbs up in the meeting today, like whatever the thing is. And it also doesn't have to be even an external thing. Like say that you're a mom, right? Or you're an aunt, or you have a young kid around and you're spending time, and the kid asked you a question, you handled it in a really great way, and you felt proud of yourself. Like that's a moment to let that success move into your body,
Yeah.
right? If you were kind to a stranger and the stranger gave you a smile and was grateful for you, it's like that, feel the soul success, because when those moments of success happen and we address them, everybody expands in proportion to it.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that because it's so many of those missed opportunities that you can see it. Just the examples you share. I mean, I think so many of us can be like, oh, yeah, I just went on by my day and kept going on because we're so busy and we can really miss those moments. So I love that there's so many moments that we can really anchor into that feeling, even if the end result, what we're trying to do is not there yet. But there's so many things along the way that we can allow ourselves to feel that gratitude. And I just, yeah, I love the examples that you shared there. And I want to go into, I know one thing you talk about, like the generational energy that we can maybe experience, because that can be something too that can really impact so many of us, is that maybe we come from families that have a certain energy and maybe we've tried to release ourselves from that or move past that. And can you share a little bit about that? It's like if we have family or people close in our life that are in that victim mindset, that everything goes wrong, and the minute you start to evolve out of it, you're the odd one out. Can you
Well, let
talk
me
about that
explain that
dynamic?
let me explain that
Yeah,
phenomenon right
I love
there.
you. Hmm.
So we are we are grown up, right? We're raised, most of us as human beings are conditioned to be in the drama triangle with people, right? Not everybody. Some of us got enlightened tools as we grew older and know how to, be empowered and ask for what we want and stand in your strength, and, be able to use your own voice and speak from the eye, and be skillful and have that alignment, and that's all great. And that's something to move towards. But most of us didn't have that. Most of us had someone in the family that was critical, judgmental, a perfectionist, so you couldn't do anything wrong. You couldn't God forbid, make a mistake, right? You had a vision maybe of your own mother or grandparents or whomever that was submissive to the men in the family. I saw that being Italian American, like many generations of where the women wore the pants, but yet they were submissive to their. It was very confusing. It was like who's in charge here, right?
Hmm.
And so whenever you have some kind of fogginess, you don't have clarity, like just that conflict. Whenever there's conflict or something arises, like what role do you play? Because there's a thing called the drama triangle. I wrote about it in my book, The Flow Factor. I call it the lack triangle. but it was a book that was written by Stephen Cartman in the 60s. And this is basically the way that we relate to each other. There is three roles that you can play. You either play the rescuer. So the rescuer is kind of like the good guy role. Like, I'm just going to people please. I want to make sure everybody is happy. I'm going to do, go. I'm going to do it better than they even know. And then it's not appreciated. And then you feel like the victim, right? I did everything for you, right? Oh my God, after all I do for you, right? You treat me like that, and there's that victim. So the second role that we can play is the victim. And it's not like one person plays this and another person plays this. In a minute they may, but we play all three of these roles. So the other role is so the victim is the poor me guy, the kind of like Eeyore, nothing ever works out for me. How come I can't? How come they get to have and I don't? How come I have to work so hard and they don't have to? Comparison of any kind, that whole spectrum of emotions that we talked about, that's coming from the drama triangle. That's the lack. That's the, the not good feel. And then inside of the drama triangle, the last role. So you have rescuer, victim, and you have persecutor. Persecutor is kind of like the bad guy role. They're the one that blames. They're the ones that can yell and be angry, and it's all your fault. And so when we find ourselves, inside of a relationship with someone, and we could even have that within ourselves. We could do all of those roles within ourselves, right? We could be like, oh, I don't feel like, I don't feel like doing anything. And then you have the persecutor part. It's like, get up, you lazy bum. It's like, you got to come on, that part that's, it has a beating stick. It's like, constantly beating ourselves up. And not enough, faster, it's like the jockey with the whip, right? It feels like that. So those roles within us, what happens is when we start to, in any family dynamic, when we start to live outside of the drama triangle, because anything that feels good, empowered, abundant, successful, we start to realize that, wait, I create my own reality. I don't have to be a victim to circumstances. And you start to attract money, or you start to attract the success, and you're starting to feel like your needs are being met. Those in the drama triangle are going to want to pull you back in, because that's all they know. So if they're in, say, a victim space, say sister or your mom or someone is poor, now poor me, look at you, everything comes easy to you, and you're like, no, I've worked really hard for this, right? But they're like, look at you, you just, it's like you everything you touch turns to gold. And it's like, it's not like I'm sitting around eating bonbons on the couch. Like, I'm grinding here, right? I'm doing this. But you're in that moment, you're getting hooked in because you're having to justify your good, right? And that's like a moment of like, how could you leave the family or the agreed upon, struggles and problems that we all seem to understand and relate to, right? And that's really energetically what's happening, is that you're evolving, you're shifting, you're changing. And I like to think of it as like, this other person is your dance partner. And for years you've been doing the mambo, and then you decide to go take a class and do the cha-cha, and you're liking the cha-cha a lot. So you're doing the cha-cha more and more and getting really good at it. But now your partner, whether it's your mom or your sister or best friend or whoever it is, they're still doing the mambo, and you're like, no, I'm dancing a different dance over here. So you either need to do the mambo again, lower your vibration and, go there, or they learn to do the cha-cha. And it's really, or you do one or the other, you learn how to live inside of it, but you get to be empowered that you're not inside, you're not stuck. Because being in the drama triangle, it's sticky. It's there's a lot of obligation. You feel stuck. You don't feel like you have any choices and options. And the minute you just even ask yourself, what would I love to do? What are the options here? Am I supposed to do this? I have to do this? Do I, am I obligated to do this? What are the choices here? What choices do I have? Because the minute you start to even recognize that I'm not stuck, this isn't a forever situation I'm never going to get out of, This is a moment where it's like it's a powerful moment where all the energy is like literally waiting at my command to vibrate in a certain way where I can focus the energy and change my situation. So what do I want?
Mhm.
Right? And coming from that lower level vibration and going into that higher vibration, giving yourself compassion. Compassion, self-compassion is the most underrated tool, energetic tool that we have as humans available to us. It's just when you can feel a wave of self-compassion, and it's not I feel sorry for myself or boo-hoo. You move out of that victim, but you still get to be comforted. You're
Mhm.
self-comforted.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so I read your book when I knew you were coming on. So it's that part that you described. Oh my gosh, it's so much resonated with me because I was in a drama triangle for much of my life and I played many of those roles and I see it for what it is now and it was just very eye-opening. I wish I'd read it a long time ago because it was very eye-opening to me. But it can be really challenging and like you said, stickiness of like pulling you back in and the people want you to play that dynamic. And for me, once I started moving out of it, the dynamics and the relationships dissolved in a very not great way. And can you share about like how we can look at that and maybe our external world feels like it's falling apart, but then to anchor into our knowing of like I'm living in what feels right for me and in alignment with myself, even if people are not coming along the journey with me.
100%. So, two things I just want to share. So, first of all,
Mhm.
there's a lot more that we could talk about on generational energy and what's in our DNA. And that's kind of
Mhm.
the stuff that I do with healing and the council. Because
Mhm.
when you go into the DNA and you command the DNA to bring in a different energy instead of lack, bring in prosperity, you're literally shifting your energy. You're healing that out of your own system. And when you do that, when you can get the old energies of the people that grew us, like literally, like we were in not only our mother's womb, but our grandmother, because our eggs were developing while our mother was in our grandmother. And
Mhm.
so there's energy of grandmother, so that not to freak people out, but just to know that if you're feeling like this isn't mine, here's just a quick energy practice you could do. If you're feeling like this, why does this keep coming from? Where does this thought even keep coming from? Or this perspective. Or I remember years ago I was sitting, I just finished coaching, and I was sitting upstairs having breakfast or lunch, and my kids were running around, and it was like they had the nanny with them, and my husband was out doing something, and I just sat down for lunch, a lovely lunch, and I heard a voice inside my head say, "This life is hard." And I literally went, "Are you crazy? Like, look how good I have it. Like, what do you mean life is hard? Where is that coming from?" And that was a generational, like, for me, life is so hard. This is so difficult. And I was literally in a moment of just pure appreciation. And the life is hard came. Now, that's really obvious, right? It was like, that was so like blatant, like, what? A lot of times it's not as obvious. And so that energy of what we've picked up, learned, programmed with, didn't even know, that's the whole subconscious, the unconscious, you can continue to bring in light and energy and direct the energy towards how you do want to feel, and even direct it towards your past. So you can call your energy back from parents, grandparents, like all the way back. You could just start commanding that you're pulling that your life force energy and your power from your own past or from your ancestors, and pulling that energy back. You can then in this now moment call that energy to you of, if there's been a lot of lack or survival consciousness. Now I want to start bringing in that supportive, loving, creator consciousness energy. So when you have an awareness of something, that's the moment transformation can happen, because you're aware of it, right? It's like, this is coming from where? I don't know. In that moment, it's not like, oh well, it's like, no, bring in consciously the energy that you want and move out of that old energy. So the second part I wanted to say about this is that because I've been doing this work a long time, over 30 years, and I've also been, with clients for 25 years, I have seen this happen in my own life, and I've seen this happen to, so many clients, that when you start to feel empowered, when you start to really work with and find your fulfillment spiritually, energetically, when you start to master your own mind, right? When you are being more in that creative consciousness and being very deliberate about what you focus on, life is going to change because the vibration and the energy changes. I created this program, and I'm going to offer this to all of your listeners. You can go to watchyourwords.com. It's 30 days, it's 30 videos, 2 to 3 minutes in length, that tell you what not to say, why, and what to say instead, because our words matter, our words create. And so when you can even just start focusing on shifting a word that doesn't feel good to shifting a word that feels expansive and, feels good, then your energy changes. And then when your energy changes, you draw different things to you. You're even more open to different parts of your brain to receive higher level ideas and desires and things like that. It just shifts us entirely. So as you are doing that, what happens is you start to open up to a different vibration, and the lower level vibration that was hanging on. So for us personally, right, we get an intention, we have a desire, we set a new goal, that person we need to become in order to have that, it's being held down by who we currently are. So just even in that place, recognizing that any places that are needing to be released, letting that go. Imagine calling in your soul. Your soul's like your big bubble of light all around you, 5 feet above you, 5 feet below you, 5 feet in front of you, 5 feet around you. And when you can be more in that vibration of your soul, then you have that higher energy, right? Well, when you start doing that and you raise your vibration, other people that can't match that vibration anymore will have to, like we said, they're either going to have to pick it up. They're maybe going to leave your life in a way. Sometimes it can be in a way that doesn't feel very good and it's traumatizing. And other times it could be something elegantly. I have a client I'm thinking about, her name is Teresa. She had a girlfriend for all of her life and, into her 60s. And I mean, grade school friendship. And all of a sudden, she just started becoming more and more empowered by, working with me and feeling better and not getting out of the drama triangle and being more choiceful in what she, wants to do instead of feeling like she has to do everything and playing that victim. And so she started saying no when she felt a no and started saying yes when she felt like a yes. And she's a totally different person now, but her best friend all of a sudden wouldn't return her calls, didn't want to be friends with her anymore. And it was devastating to her and having that loss, right? But what happened was after she let herself feel the devastation, she let herself feel the okay, and she gave herself that comfort and, masters her own energy. She went to a retreat of mine in Sedona, and there was a woman that they just immediately connected and they're like best friends now. So she lost a friend that couldn't match her level anymore and now attracted and brought in someone that at just a higher, deeper, more connected. It's like they speak the same language, whereas before she felt like she was speaking, a foreign language with her friend, and her friend wasn't getting her and she wasn't getting her friend anymore. And so it's that where you rise to the level of vibration that you choose, and the rest of the world, include your own personal world, including the people you associate with, will too, or they will go out and track somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate sharing that because it's it can almost feel like what is going on when so many things are falling apart, even though you feel so much better internally, but you look at your outside world and you're like, oh my gosh, but it's that like making space for new and sometimes those losses in the human world make that space for new connections. So I love that example you shared of your client and her friend.
I remember when I first started doing like deep energy work and meditation, I remember hearing a cassette tape from Marianne Williamson back in the day, and this is in the 90s. And Marianne Williamson said that she said, oh, I thought I'll just invite God in. I thought, oh, just invite this part of my life in, and God's just going to improve everything. He's going to put a nice portico on the house, kind of zhuzh things up a little bit, right? It'll be my life and all that just so much better. And she said what she wasn't expecting is that God said, okay, and then takes a wrecking ball and wrecked the house and said, now we can start.
Mm.
Right. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. But it's exactly what happened to me too. It's like, because the beliefs that we have are like the sides of the chair, right? It's like those are the foundations of what keeps us, the legs of the chair, balanced. And right. So when you have a new belief, like, you create your own reality, and now you're wanting to live into the, wait, how do I do that? And do I really have that power? And what do I have to do? And, how do I do it? And what do I need to know? And what's this thing called energy? And how do wait, success already exists for me right now. How do I do that? It wobbles the chair pieces, because the foundation of what you have known all your life is now rocked. And so it's like, we're going to start with this new foundation. We're going to start with this new premise that everything is energy, that all energy is available to you, and that all energy carries a vibration. The vibration is what you choose as the human being, focusing on that certain vibration, need, desire, whatever it may be, or the lack of it, or the fear of not having it, or the worry you'll never get it. That's a vibration too. And we manifest from that place. So we are really important in what we manifest in our lives.
Yeah, I so appreciate you sharing that, because all the aspects of that, because I think sometimes we hear the word manifestation and it's like people sell sunshine and butterflies and that's it. But it's like to talk about all the aspects of it, that, how our life can evolve, even if it's a beautiful thing, but there's a lot of things that can happen in that process that are the reality of it. So I so appreciate you sharing that. And I'd love to go back to what you were saying before, some of the generational things. And when you heard that life is hard voice come in, can you talk about that? Because when we're trying to listen to our inner guidance and intuition, we have a lot of different things, our thoughts and now thoughts from maybe generations, and then our intuition. How do we decipher what we should follow and what we should say, oh, that's not mine?
Well, the good rule of thumb is, if it feels good, follow it.
Mhm.
Right? And here's the thing: is most of us didn't get that type of programming, because if you have a silly thought, you shouldn't do that, right? It's like, if we got to follow the rules, and we got to be a good girl, and we got to make sure that this works and that works and that works, and so we got to pay attention to your money and your body and your, like, there's stuff that you need to focus, worry about, right? And when we start to focus on that we can have more, and that there's so much more support and love and abundance, right? It just absolutely shakes that belief, and that what we feel that we can have. And so when we when we allow ourselves to again, it's that space, right? And you focus on what feels good, because the intuition voice feels good. I always say that, I channel, and the counsel that comes through me, and they never say to me, warning, watch out, right? They're never focusing on, oh, in this year, this is going to happen. They're guiding me towards what feels good. Like, what in the stuff that's happening in the world, what do I need to do to stay calm in it and to know that I'm okay? Right? It's like, that's the thing that is mastering your own energy, mastering being the understanding that I'm having a thought that doesn't feel good right now, right? It doesn't matter where it came from, right? For me to hear life is hard, it doesn't matter if it was part of me. It could have been an inner part of me that said it. It could have been my dad. It could have been my great grandfather. Who it doesn't matter. It was that energy came up, and for awareness in that moment, for me to go, do I want to continue that to be the belief, right?
Yeah.
Because somewhere in some kind of field, on some dimensions, said it. Life is so hard, right? I can even go, yeah, it is, and then attract my life around it. But I'm envisioning how wonderful my life is, and to hear that, it was a moment of, like, compassion to that part that believes it,
Mhm.
right? That's the neutrality. We didn't really talk much about that, but that's the neutrality of getting from one set of vibrations over to the other, is that neutrality point of compassion where, instead of beating that, instead of being going, that's stupid, you're dumb, that doesn't, instead of trying to resist it and fight back with it, it was like just giving that part that believes that compassion,
Yeah.
giving that, letting that part go, sorry you believe that, that's not true, look how wonderful life is beautiful, life is easy. Now you get to command and you get to redeclare, what do you want life to be, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
I'll share another example because
Hmm.
I'm getting this as a years ago. This is years and years ago. I was supposed to meet someone that was I work with some athletes, celebrities, and this person was supposed to do a healing session with me, but I needed to go to see him in Tempe, and he was busy and lost communication, big athlete kind of thing.
Hmm.
So I'm just kind of waiting. I drove, 45 minutes to Tempe. I'm waiting in my car about an hour and I'm like, there's no communication. I'm like, is this happening? I cleared the whole day, but I was getting like annoyed. Like,
Hmm.
come on, my time is valuable too, right?
Yeah.
And so the emotions that were coming up was, okay, I'm getting annoyed. What do I do? Do I stay? Do I go? That whole, like, I'm confused, the whole fight, flight, freeze. You'll go through the whole gamut of all those different things. And for me, it was like, you know what? Doesn't look like it's happening. I'm not going to waste the rest of my day. So I just decided I'll give it another half an hour, generous amount of time. I'll give it another half an hour. If that, we're done. So
Hmm.
after a half an hour of not hearing anything, I was like really, I was really angry. I was like, how
Hmm.
could they? That's like 3 hours of my time, and and I was feeling the anger, and I was letting myself process the waves of energy that were anger vibration waves. And
Hmm.
by going into my belly, by going into my emotional body, by feeling the anger, I let myself feel it and not have any judgment about it, and then I let it go. And then a wave of sadness came over me because I was really looking forward to it.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
was feeling sad. So I let myself feel sad, and that the minute the energy of disappointment came up, I was like, oh, no, 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 no. And I could hear my guidance, the counsel, say to me, pull over, because I was doing this all while I was driving. So I
Hmm.
pulled over and they said to me, why will you allow yourself to feel anger and sadness, but you won't allow yourself to feel disappointment? And
Hmm.
in that moment, I had a memory from when I was a kid that I went through seventh and eighth grade. I really wanted to be part of teams, a team. I just wanted to be part of kids playing a sport or doing something,
Hmm.
right? And the biggest thing I wanted to do is I wanted to be a cheerleader. So I tried out for seventh grade cheer and I didn't make it. But on my way to go try out, my mom would say to me, now don't be disappointed if you don't get it. And then I would come home and she would say, well, life is full of disappointments.
Hmm.
So I tried out for basketball, for track, for tennis, and it was the same thing every time. Now, don't be disappointed if you don't get it. Well, life's full of disappointments when I didn't get it. So right there is such a mixed message because
Hmm.
life is full of disappointments. And in that moment, I was like, wait a minute. Do I want that to be a belief? Do I want my life to be full of disappointments? No. I want my life to be full of surprise and delights. I want my life to be full of success. I want my life to be full of fun and adventure and love. And that's what I want my life. And it was like me declaring that to all of those younger parts, but especially giving compassion to those seventh and eighth grade versions of myself that had this ingrained. And I remember I was a freshman in high school, and the pom line came out to dance, and I was with my mom at freshman orientation, and I saw them dance, and I was like, oh, I want to be a pom girl, and I was like, I'm going to be a pom girl, and my mom started to go, and I go, it's not, stop it, because I'm going to be a pom girl, and I was
Yeah.
like, you can't even, just don't even say it, just don't even say that, it's not even, I'm going to be a pom girl, and I was just like declaring that, right,
Yeah.
and but it's talking to those voices that maybe your mom and maybe this, but the
Yeah.
intuition, the guidance, the alignment, the energy will always be in pure positive. It's what we do to direct it. Anything that's a negative, that's program, because
Hmm.
that's not who you really are.
Yeah. Oh, so thank you for that example because it's something that I mean everybody has some example like that, but it looks different maybe. But like the I went to a sound healing and there was like, for me, it was like an 8-year-old version that's like, you're not enough. And it was something so like, as an adult, you're like, come on, that's no big deal. But to an 8-year-old, that was a big deal. And I can see how those have played out in my life of like, you're not enough. And then it's like, you're proving that you're not enough is correct. So it's something I think we all struggle with some, on some level. I don't want to say struggle because again, the
No, you
languaging,
can,
but like,
oh, you can struggle
yeah,
with it for
you can start,
sure.
but to be
Yeah.
aware of it and know that these are the things that are running our life and isn't our truth. And I think that's so empowering to realize that that's not our truth. It's just something that was what we believed as a child.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, does that child get to say so in what they have declared from their limited experience and brain and, like perspective? I mean, do they get to still run the show, or does the adult that knows better get to then parent that one and say, actually, there's a different perspective, right? You don't have to believe this. But what happens, and as you know from reading the book, the flow factor, is that, we're going along, things are good, and then boom, there's a bushwhack. Something
Mhm.
we weren't expecting is said to us, or we find out, or that we get disappointed, we're told no, we can't have the thing we want for Christmas, whatever it is, and then that little one collapses in on that energy, and then that becomes their reality,
Yeah.
right? But then when you see it from an adult perspective, or even from now, here's a cool quantum physics. When you're in the now and you're wanting to create something you haven't created, when you connect with your future self that already is experiencing it and loving it, and it's like it's living it, right? And that future self brings you energy back. You're doing essentially what you would be doing to your younger self, is giving the energy shift, giving that version an opportunity to release, to heal,
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
heal.
It's so powerful. And I just love how it's all from within. We're not like relying on all the things being perfect outside. It's all things that we have within us. It's almost like Dorothy in a ruby red slipper. She didn't realize she had the power all along to get back home. And it's like coming back home to yourself and realizing that you always had it with you. So I love that. And I think it's something, a message that can't be said enough because it's something that could transform ourselves and the world if we all just start to embody that more. And
Ugh.
I'm so grateful for everything you shared. And for someone who wants to connect with you, read your book, where can they find it?
Well, I definitely would go to watchyourwords.com, because then you start to, learn the words that are really constricting and what to say instead, which is really important, right? I mean, I have my 16-year-old that's like, "Hey mom, I want to do this." And I'm like, "That's not a financial priority right now."
Mhm.
Right? He's like, "I want to take a peptide that will make my skin tan." But, and I'm like, "That's not a financial priority right now." Right? It's like, that's just not a
Yeah.
goal.
Mhm.
But I'm not telling him you can't do it, or we can't afford it, or that you're not enough in having it. It's none of that. It's just what, sounds good. Got a few other things on my priority list right now. That's not one of them. So, okay, right? He gets it. But yeah, so learning what to say and what not to say is really imperative as a creator. And then you could also go to the flowfactorbook.com. I think that was the question you asked, where people could find me. So watchyourwords.com and the flowfactorbook.com, christywhitman.com. I'm on Instagram at
Yeah.
Christy Whitman Official. All the places. Just Google
Mhm.
me.
Amazing. I'll put everything in the show notes. So definitely connect with Christy. And again, I can't thank you enough for everything you shared. I know there's going to be so many messages and golden nuggets that people are going to pull from this and it's going to transform their lives. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And again, for anyone listening, if this has resonated with you, share it with someone who you also think could benefit. It's through sharing these messages that we can really transform our lives from the inside out. So again, thank you so much for being here.